Just wanted to start off the state of the Houston Texans. How do you feel about it right now? And obviously, we're here at the Combine. What's kind of the outlook moving forward here?
People are so fired up to get D'Amico Ryans back in Houston as the head coach. The franchise has been in such a disarray. Everybody, fans, media, everybody wanted D'Amico, who was the hottest assistant coach on the market, to become a head coach, and that was the job he called his dream job. So he's fired up. They're fired up. They got the second, 12th overall picks, 11 in all. Next year they get 2 more number 1 picks, 10 in all. So I think they'll be doing a little maneuvering in the draft. They got cap money for the first time in like 6 years. So it's looking up. You don't have much. You got a long way to go in the direction they need to go after winning 3 games last year and having the worst victory in franchise history when they beat the Colts right here in the last game, cost them the number 1 pick.
Very, very impressive year from Mr. Dameon Pierce there as well. Do you feel he's a potential franchise caliber back for moving forward?
Today, it's hard for people to call a franchise back. Bijan Robinson ought to be a top 5 pick, but everybody's saying he could last till 20, which was BS. There's no way Bijan Robinson's lasting till 20. He's just in an era where running backs are not as important. If Bijan came out when Earl Campbell came out, he might be the 2nd overall pick behind Earl. So I think this. I believe that the Texans and Pierce, he takes a beating because he deals out a lot of punishment. They need to get a second back to share the carries, but he has the personality. Media loves him. He has the personality and the ability to become a franchise back.
I like that a lot. And I was going to ask you about Bijan. Well, what do you think is a good fit for him here at the draft? And what did you just think of his career at Texas as well?
Well, since I went to Baylor, I wish he'd had a worse career because he had a great career. And what sets him apart is he's such a great receiver. He can play in a slot. If they want him to go in motion and catch on the boundary, he doesn't have to come out of the game unless they want to give him some rest. And I think he's an incredible player. I think he's going to be even better in the NFL than he was at UT because he had shared time and with Johnson. And so I think he should hope he falls, and he falls to Buffalo. Buffalo has everything but a running back, and I could see the Bills trading up to get him because they're desperate, and he would make them a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
I've been thinking that exact same thing on the Bills. It's very well stated. The state of the Big 12, you mentioned your Bears there. How do you feel about this season? Obviously, TCU has a lot of guys going pro here. TCU, Baylor, you have Texas OU for one last hoorah. How do you feel about it?
Well, first of all, I graduated from a basketball school trying to get back to the Final Four, and who just beat the Longhorns in men and women's, and football was a big disappointment this season. And I'll say this, as someone who grew up on the Southwest Conference in Waco, if the Longhorns can't dominate in the Big 12, how in the world are they going to win in the SEC? The fact is they're not, and their fans know it. Now, they'll make another $20 or $30 million a year. They already got more money than Fort Knox. I don't know any fans that are happy to be going to the SEC because they know what it means. And if you held the Aggie fans' feet to the fire and asked them if they wish they'd stayed in the Big 12 where they might have played in a couple of championship games, they would say yes. So I don't care about the Sooners, but I hate to see the Longhorns go. It won't be the same without them, especially when Baylor beats them and all their fans are devastated.
I love it. I wanted to ask you too. The state of the Aggies. How do you feel? Can Jimbo turn this thing around? What's your perception of what's going on down there in College Station?
Biggest disappointment in college football last year. They hired Bobby Petrino. I think that was a bad hire. There's no way he and Jimbo are not going to clash over that offense because Jimbo's going to be looking over his shoulder and Petrino's going to be giving him this because that's who Bobby Petrino is. And they always, they used to call Mac Brown, Coach March because he did recruiting so well. And now Jimbo does a great job of recruiting. And they come in and they don't start, then they get mad and enter the transfer portal. So I think they'll be better than they were last year because they can't get much worse. But I don't see them being a threat to win the West, just like I don't see the Longhorns being a threat. I just hope A&M and Texas are in the same division so they play each other every year, because it should have been against the law that they didn't play against each other.
How surprised were you about TCU season last year?
The worm has kind of turned. You know, it used to be when I was young, Texas and Arkansas every year. Death taxes, Texas. And lately, TCU's done a great job. You know, Chris Del Conte, you know, TCU got the coach he recommended, and the Longhorns, whoever Del Conte recommended him to, didn't want Dykes, and TCU didn't want him. Oh, we don't want that guy from SMU. And now they love him, and he got a even bigger contract. And I think it's great. TCU's become a power. I don't see them falling off like Baylor did last year. I'm still irritated that Baylor blew the TCU game with a field goal with no time left. And but I hope it's a great last season for the Longhorns. Like I said, I don't care about the Sooners, but I'm big on traditions because I'm old. I want to see Texas know you play every year, and I just think it's wrong that A&M and Texas have not played every year.
I agree with you on that. Back to the Texans for a moment. Do you almost have to go quarterback with their first round pick there?
D'Amico Ryan's a great defensive coordinator of the 49ers. He didn't have a number one pick in his back seven. He had 3 on the defensive line. Now, I think Jalen Carter's stock's going to drop because of all these legal problems. He's back in town to talk to all the teams, tell them he had nothing to do with the 2 people getting killed, and that could be true. But some teams, he had character issues anyway, so that benefits Will Anderson Jr. And you know D'Amico Ryans would love to have a Will Anderson Jr. or a Jalen Carter without the legal issues in his defensive line. But when you got a chance to get a quarterback, you better take it. You can fill in the other positions. We don't know if they're going to like Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. We don't want them to like Will Levis. And Anthony Richards is not worth being picked that high. But I watched every game Bryce Young played. If he were 3 inches taller, he'd be Trevor Lawrence or Andrew Luck, a generational prospect. But he's just so small and slight and thin. And I don't know what Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans think about a quarterback with that kind of size issues. Not the height throwing the ball, not being tough, but just standing up to a 17-game season, hopefully at some point more than 17. And so I think they have to take a quarterback at 2.
I like that breakdown, and I'll get you out here on a little bit of baseball here. Just the state of the Houston Astros. How are you feeling about the squad after coming off the World Series? How was spring training as well?
I spent the first 10 days at spring training writing about the Astros. I've never written about a champion in Houston in my 47 years at the Houston Chronicle. And then I got hired by Gallery Sports, Mattress Max Company, as their lead columnist, and I can go anywhere, do anything I want. So I love being around the Astros. Being in their clubhouse 2 hours a day, just watching them interact, that it's a confident team. They know they're good. They know nothing's guaranteed. They know injuries could derail them. They were fortunate for the most part last year, but they got a good team. But like Atlanta was a defending champion, 102 games, and then got upset in the playoffs. So it's going to be a fun season in Houston, and I like what the Rangers did in the offseason. I hope Jacob deGrom can stay healthy for at least half the season, especially if it's the second half when things get serious.
And just quickly, tell me about your new endeavor here with Gallery Sports, and just what you've been up to as well.
I retired from the Houston Chronicle on March 31st after 47 years, 45 covering the NFL, and I thought I was going to do my talk shows. I'm on 11 times a week in 6 cities, 6 on the Texans flagship, maybe write for the website, do a podcast every now and then. And Mattress Mac called me, wanted to start GallerySports.com. We cover everything, including the Cowboys and Rangers. And I told him, we're not in Dallas and Fort Worth. Why aren't we covering them? He said, because they got so many fans down here, and they buy furniture too. And what I like about Gallery Sports I can go anywhere I want, write as much as I want, and as I do a video weekly with Mac, and I tell people that like his furniture delivery at night, Gallery Sports is free, free, free. No paywall.
I love it. I love it. All right, Mr. McClain, I really appreciate the time. Thank you for talking to Fanatics U, and have a great week here in Indianapolis.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.